Hey everybody, welcome to ATDev Podcast. I'm happy to be joined today by Greg Toroosian, the founder of Samson Rose. Hey Greg, how you doing?
How's it going, Owen? Thanks for having me on.
Doing good. Thanks for being here. Well, you are a bit of an influencer yourself, and so people may have already heard about you, but for those who haven't, would you mind just giving a little intro on your background?
Sure, yeah, thank you. And you flatter me, calling me an influencer. But yeah, I founded Samson Rose about 6 years ago. We're a boutique search firm in the robotics and hard tech space. I've been in the recruiting world for about 17 years. Mixture of external agency and then internal building and leading talent acquisition teams. I also have a podcast myself called Machine Minds, which I was lucky enough to have you guys on as well. And yeah, happy
Yeah,
to
it's a
answer any
great
more specific. Yeah.
it's a great podcast. Check it out.
Thank you. Thank you. But yeah, I can answer anything specific that you have.
Yeah, what motivated you to specialize in recruiting?
That is a loaded question. I think anyone who is in the recruiting space can probably relate to just falling into it. I was introduced to the industry by a friend because I actually was in the music industry before and I kind of got burnt out from it being my passion and my work and my study and my hobby. And I wanted to do something that the more effort I put in, I could work my way up, something more meritocratic. And someone that I knew said, "Hey, you're a people person. I think you'd be good in this trainee program. Why don't you think about it?" And that was kind of like the intro for me. And it really clicked. People decide on their next move, being like a career counselor loosely to them. And then as my career developed and I found a niche area that I was very passionate about, everything kind of fell into place.
I think recruiting in robotics can be particularly challenging because it's so multidisciplinary and
Yeah.
ever evolving. What are some of the unique challenges that you see?
Yeah, there's a lot. Like you said, the multidisciplinary element of it is pretty tough. I think there's two sides. One, from a recruiter standpoint, where I see people have real challenges and sometimes fall down, is not really understanding what they're recruiting for. They don't understand
Right,
the product that their client is making, all the different areas, whether it's technology or materials or even teams that go into developing that thing. And in my experience, not any two companies are the same. Even if they're competitors, even if they're in the same space, they do things very differently. They weight experience differently as well with their candidates. So really understanding that. And then on the client side, they've got their own challenges. So I don't know how much you want me to go into that, but it's something.
I would love to. I think sitting here as a robotics company founder, I think that's something that is really interesting to us and something that we've, had kind of an on again, off again relationship with finding the right candidates.
Yeah, I think whenever I talk about recruiting from whichever side it is, from the client side or the recruiter side, it always comes down to alignment and clarity. So you need to be clear with what you're hiring for and why, and then be aligned with every stakeholder involved. When
Mm,
I see companies falling down, there's a lot of ambiguity of why they're hiring a role, what the ideal profile is, or even something as simple as the job description, the actual duties and responsibilities, and what success looks
right.
like in a role. Once you're clear on all of that as a hiring manager, as a founder, then you can really pinpoint the right person or the right profile and know it when they come across your desk. Someone's like, "Oh, we need an engineer jack of all trades to just help us in a bunch of areas because robotics is multidisciplinary. So we're going to call it
Right.
a robotics engineer or a mechatronics engineer, but they could be a full stack engineer that wants to do robotics, or they could have a mechanical background and want to do a bit more software. And like, there's just too much variety there, and you can't
Right.
assess someone properly from an interview standpoint, from a duty standpoint or even from like a caliber standpoint. And if it's that wide, several things happen. One, your job description is too vague and fluffy, so you're going to get a bunch of random people interested or applying. And then
Right.
your recruiting partner doesn't really know what they're looking for. They've got this spray and pray approach, like, oh, hopefully my client knows what's good when they see it. And everyone's spinning their wheels. So that's the risk there.
Yeah, absolutely. Having the right job description is so important, and really being able to measure success in a meaningful way is something that I think is often overlooked, and
Yeah.
probably more so at early stage startup companies rather than mature companies. How do you see a different strategy for more early stage versus more mature?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's a great distinction. We primarily focus with early stage, like pre-seed to kind of Series B, Series C, and you can obviously see the difference as a company is getting to that B, C round and even beyond. You know, we work with public companies, etc. But roles, duties, teams, all of that is much more defined. Even the process for hiring is much more defined
Mm,
the more mature the company is. So there's less variation in the type of role. It's like, hey, we have this software engineer or robotics engineer title, and there's several layers in that. The experience, which means it's going to unlock more duties and responsibilities. That's kind of like the only variety that the person will have in their position. They tend to be kind of pigeonholed, which makes it easier to define what good is. And then, you know, the bar that you need to hit to unlock senior or principal title. But in the earlier stage, and rightly so, there is a lot more flex. There's a lot more openness. And I love that. Personally, I love that because it gives us more to sell to a candidate. But I also enjoy
right.
the advising the client on defining what the role is. But if I'm helping you hire a COO, for example, the right person will really come in and help write their job description and create what the role is. Or someone
Interesting.
who leads the sales function or CRO, they're going to help you define like what the commission structure should be and things like that and your go to market. But you need to have either the realization and conviction that this is a role you need to hire and why, and then trust that process of finding the right person instead of what, like, I always caution my clients about opportunistic hires, you know, because you've probably
Mm,
been in a situation where a good person is referred to you, whether it's by your board or your network or someone you used to work with, you're like, oh, we'll make a role for them or create them because they're great and we should have them on the team. That's a slippery
yeah,
slope
absolutely. Yeah.
because if you don't have something solid for them, one, they're probably expensive, so you're paying money for no reason. But then two, you want your people to be engaged and also productive quickly because that helps your retention. If they aren't and they're just spinning their wheels, not doing anything, it's much more likely that they will leave because they don't have something keeping them there, feeling
Right.
productive, adding value, being part of the team, all of those things.
I think the best candidate helps you write their own job description.
Yeah, no, it's true. And you know, as a founder of a early stage hardware robotics company, you know that we might hire someone with this title and this role, but the right person, we want to do more than that. You know, the cliche wearing multiple hats and being fine with
Yeah.
ambiguity and all of that stuff. It's true.
Yeah, and I think, for job seekers, this is a unique time with artificial intelligence. How have you seen AI change the job market, particularly from a job seeker perspective?
Yeah, there's a few different things here, right? I hear from my clients, and this is because we act as a partner to them. So they open up a lot about things they're seeing or they show us their systems, and they're like, we get 50 of pretty much the same resume for each role,
Yeah,
but it's a different name and a different location because candidates are just
right.
using AI to write their resumes now.
And that too.
Okay, so yeah, you can test to that, and that's pretty crazy because the candidate doesn't know that. And they think I'm positioning myself in the best way I can, but now you just look like everyone else. So
Right.
one, you get drowned out in that noise. Once you've seen one resume, and we can, as recruiters, we've seen this for years of people that are like in consulting companies that are now just trying to get another consulting role, like a corp to corp company, something like that. Their resumes
Right.
are always formatted and look the same. You just start filtering those out because you don't know what to trust. Or you think it's one person trying to deceive and be all of these different people. So I would advise against doing that. The other ways that AI has kind of changed it is for the testing, for take home tests, or even I've seen people trying to use their coding
Mm.
tests or interviews. I would advise against it. Yeah. I think everyone should be using AI in some way with their work to enable them to do more with less, speed things up, things like that. But don't use it to cheat live. Don't use it to
Yeah.
deceive in your profile.
Yeah, it's a tricky balance, right? Because I want to be able to do more with less, as you said, but you don't want to be in a position where AI is doing the communicating for you because
Yeah,
that's not what it's good at.
exactly. It's not human. I see it all the time with people that I'm emailing with, or even family and friends, or cold outreach. Because again, I'm a business owner, so I get hit up all the time by these automated outreaches, and you can
Yep.
tell. If you've used ChatGPT for a few months, you can now tell what is written in AI, like the words
Yeah.
it's using, the way it's written, the punctuation, all of that stuff.
Yeah. The
Turns me off.
emojis.
Yeah, the emojis and the double dashes and stuff, and I'm just like, stop, you know, because my emails, when I'm responding, they're like, I'm not putting anything through AI, and other people will say, "Oh, you should. It makes it more." I'm like, no, that's not me responding.
Right.
Crafted outline or a post or an initial email, maybe, but not everything that I'm sending. It's overkill.
Yeah, and I think it needs to be used with caution, and it probably doesn't help find a job for the job seekers ultimately.
No, no, because everyone's doing it. How do you differentiate yourself is the real question.
I'd like to transition a little bit and talk about marketing and branding. I
Mm.
really admire your podcast and your social media presence. How has your strategy towards marketing and branding evolved over the years?
Well, firstly, thank you. I appreciate that. Before I started my business, I was part of companies. So I was internal, as I mentioned, and I led talent acquisition functions. So I was always associated to a bigger brand. So I would get speaking engagements or be invited on other podcasts and stuff like that. But it was really because I was Greg Toroosian from that company. So when I started my own
Mm.
business, I was starting from scratch. All of that stuff went away. And I was like, well, how can I do something that and position myself as a thought leader, but also do something that is adding value to the people that see this content or see me and anything that I share. That's why I started a podcast and just started sharing more on online because outside of our podcast I have a lot of conversations with founders and leaders and investors, etc., that are really cool, that don't see the light of day, and I wanted to share that with the community. I think what was helpful is I went into it without like, hey, I just want to do this for developing business, or I just want to do this to get followers. There was multi-pronged approach of networking and sharing and positioning my guests as thought leaders and help. Like the selfish part was personal and business branding. And because there was all of these elements to the direction I wanted to go, I think that's why that was like more my strategy, and that's why it has been helpful in the long term. There's obviously, quicker ways of doing things, right? Paid advertising and PR firms and all of this stuff. But I think I wanted to do something a bit more organic and then slow and steady. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely resonate with that wanting to share those insights and stories and yeah, I think that's a big reason why ATDev started this podcast as well, is because medical device robotics is such a niche space that
Yeah,
is so interesting, and it touches on so many elements of technology, medicine, accessibility, design, recruiting, so many things that are very diverse and interesting to a wide range of people. And it all kind of comes together to form a medical device company. And we really wanted to be able to share some of those stories and insights and ultimately hope to inspire other people to find work in this industry or even start their own company.
definitely. Yeah, that's the right intention behind this stuff because the other side of it can be a bit transparent, right? People can see through it. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Awesome, Greg. Thank you again for being on. And where can people learn more about you and Samson Rose?
oh, my pleasure. Thank you again for having me. People can find me on LinkedIn. I basically live on there. I'm not always as super active as responding to my messages as I should be, but I'm getting better. So you can find me there, just Greg Toroosian. Our website is samsonrose.com, and that will both of those will have links to the podcast, which is Machine Minds, and you can find that on all platforms: YouTube, Apple, Spotify, etc.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Greg. And yeah, I'm looking forward to connecting again soon in the future.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Great. And if you enjoyed this podcast and you'd like to see more, don't forget to like and subscribe. And until the next one.